All right, so welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to try to get to the bottom of Rigetti Computing, RGTI, for you.
Hmm.
Especially kind of going into this last week of the year, the week of December 30th. Looks like it could be a wild ride.
Yeah.
So you've given us some financial news articles, some analyst predictions, and some market reports. So we're going to dive in and try to see if we can make any sense of it.
It's such an interesting company, right?
Yeah.
Operating in a field that is so futuristic
Yeah.
and has the potential to really revolutionize almost everything.
Yeah. Like if you look at what happened with RGTI on December 26th,
Oh, yeah.
they hit an all-time high. $12.79. That was a 124% increase over the past year.
Yeah. I think that just shows a surge in confidence
Right.
in the quantum computing sector, where Rigetti is a major player.
Right, but then you look at what analysts are predicting going into next week.
Yeah.
They're saying RGTI could open around $1 and fluctuate somewhere between like $0.97 and $1.13.
Yeah.
So that's a potential daily swing of almost 8%.
Yeah. So that volatility
Yeah.
is what we're going to try to unpack here.
Right, because it's exciting to see a stock, go up like that.
Sure.
But you got to understand what's kind of behind all that.
Absolutely. And in a sector as complicated and dynamic as quantum computing,
Right.
it's important to understand the dynamics.
Yeah. So where do we even begin with that? Like, what are the things that are kind of driving this roller coaster?
Well, I mean, I think the most obvious one is that it's operating in an area where there are so many unknowns.
Right.
This isn't like investing in a sector that's been around forever.
Right.
Quantum computing is very young.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of speculation that's built into the stock price. Investors are essentially betting on future potential, not current performance.
Right. Like the Wild West of tech, kind of.
Totally.
Are there specific, events or indicators that might be leading into this dip next week, though?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is that, they may be overbought.
Okay.
And that basically means that the stock price has risen a lot faster than its perceived value.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to crash, but it does mean that a correction might be on the horizon.
Okay. So how do you measure that? Like, how do you even gauge whether a stock is actually overbought or if it's just riding a wave of enthusiasm?
Well, one way is by using the Relative Strength Index,
Okay.
or RSI, which measures the magnitude of recent price changes
Right.
to assess if a stock is overbought or oversold.
Gotcha.
And Rigetti's RSI right now is indicating that a pullback is possible.
Interesting. So it sounds like even with all this excitement around quantum computing and what they've done, there are signs that things might be a little bit ahead of themselves.
Yeah, it could be.
But I'm curious to know, about the actual performance of the company itself. Are they generating revenue? Are they attracting partners? What's the story apart from just the stock?
Well, so they made a lot of headlines. With the launch of their 84-qubit Anka 3 system,
Okay.
which is very impressive technology,
Yeah.
but how does that translate into real-world applications?
Yeah.
And into revenue? That's what investors are looking for.
Right. It's one thing to have a cutting-edge technology, but quite another to actually make a business out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's the outlook there? What do the reports say?
Well, they've partnered with some major players,
Okay.
like Amazon Web Services,
Right.
which suggests that they're on the radar of, big players in the industry.
Sure.
And they are developing revenue streams. The potential applications for their technology are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We're talking drug discovery, materials science, financial modeling, areas where quantum computing could really be a game changer. It's kind of like they built this rocket ship, but they haven't quite figured out where to send it yet.
Or how to sell tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where does that leave investors?
Mhm.
Is this a buy, sell, hold? What are the analysts saying?
Well, in the short term, things are a little murky. Analysts are predicting a potential decline to $11.12 in the next few weeks. That's like a 2.01%
Okay.
decrease from where it is right now. But if you zoom out a bit, the long-term potential of quantum computing is hard to ignore.
So for the long-term investor, maybe this is just noise.
Totally.
What?
If you really believe that quantum computing is going to revolutionize all these different industries, then the day-to-day or week-to-week fluctuations in the market shouldn't scare you off.
Right.
It's about believing in the technology and its ability to create value over time.
Okay, that makes sense. For the long-term investor, but what about people who are looking for more short-term gains? Is this still a good stock for them?
Well, it's trickier
Right.
because with a stock like RGTI that's so volatile,
Right.
there's potential for short-term profits,
Sure.
but you can lose a lot of money really quickly.
Right.
So you're taking on more risk. But there's also the potential for more reward.
So it's not for the risk averse. It's
Yeah.
really more about understanding like market sentiment and timing and a little bit of luck maybe.
Yeah, totally. It's almost like, you've got to read the tea leaves, understand the technical indicators,
Or-
and be able to anticipate how market sentiment is going to shift.
Yeah, kind of like surfing a little bit. You got to catch the right wave.
Exactly. And be prepared to wipe out
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. But I guess stepping back, how does Rigetti as a company, stack up against some of the competitors in this quantum computing space? Are they leading the pack or are they playing catch up?
That is the question, isn't it? So they're definitely a big player in the quantum computing race.
Okay.
But they're not alone. You got companies like IBM, Google, Microsoft, who are also investing heavily in this technology.
So what are the key differences for them? Like, what are they doing that's unique or innovative compared to the competition?
Well, one thing that I find really interesting about Rigetti is that they're very focused on accessibility. They've built this cloud-based platform called Quantum Cloud Services, which basically allows researchers and developers to remotely access their quantum computers.
So they're trying to kind of democratize access to this technology.
Exactly.
Interesting. But how does that translate into a business advantage? Are they actually getting customers and making money from that platform?
Well, it's still pretty early, right, for this type of platform. And revenue streams are really just getting started.
Sure.
But the potential's huge. I mean, imagine if you could just access this on-demand computing power without having to build your own system. That would be incredible.
Yeah, it sounds very compelling. But coming back to the whole volatility thing,
Right.
are there other factors besides this, RSI and being overbought that might be driving these wild swings in the stock price?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing we haven't touched on yet is just the impact of broader market conditions. When the entire market is doing well, investors are more likely to take risks on stocks like Rigetti, which can push the price up, but when the market starts to go down, people tend to sell.
So it's all connected.
Exactly. And then you also have to factor in things like news and announcements. A new partnership or a technological breakthrough could send the stock soaring. But any negative news could have the opposite effect.
Yeah. So how do investors navigate all of this? What would you tell someone who's considering investing in RGTI?
Well, the most important thing is to never invest in something you don't understand.
Right.
Take some time to really learn about quantum computing, how it works, its potential applications, and who the players are in this space. Once you understand the fundamentals, then you can start to evaluate whether Rigetti makes sense.
So knowledge is power. But what about risk tolerance? I mean, we've talked about how volatile this sector is. How does an investor know if this is a good fit for their portfolio?
Well, you have to be honest with yourself about how much risk you can handle. If you're someone who freaks out when the market dips, then a high growth, high volatility stock like RGTI is probably not the best option for you.
It's about finding that balance between risk and reward. What are some other things that investors should consider when they're evaluating a company like this?
I always look at the management team.
Okay.
Are they experienced? Do they have a good track record? Are they good communicators? Can they clearly articulate their vision for the company?
So it's not just about the technology itself. It's about the people behind it.
Totally.
What about red flags or green flags? Things that investors should look out for?
Well, one red flag is too much hype.
Okay.
If a company's making grand claims that aren't supported by anything concrete, that's a warning sign.
Right.
A green flag would be a company that's really focused on building a strong base, developing partnerships, generating revenue.
So it's about separating the hype from reality, looking for evidence of actual progress. Where does Rigetti stand in all of that? Are they on the path to actually becoming a profitable business? Or is this still a big gamble?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer, as with most things in the stock market, is it's complicated.
I love a good complicated answer.
Don't we all?
So let's unpack that a bit.
Okay.
What are the key factors that are really going to determine whether they succeed or fail?
Well, one really crucial factor is going to be attracting and keeping the best people.
Right.
Quantum computing is a very niche field.
Sure.
And, companies like Rigetti have to compete with all these other companies for the top talent.
It's a war for talent out there.
Yeah.
What else should investors be watching for?
Well, another key factor is going to be scaling their technology.
Okay.
They've shown that they can build powerful quantum computers.
Right.
But can they manufacture these at scale and at a cost that makes sense?
Right. Because it's not just about the hardware, it's about the software and the algorithms that make it actually work.
Absolutely. It's about developing the entire ecosystem.
Hmm.
And Rigetti is involved in all of that, the hardware, the software, the partnerships.
So it's a complex picture.
Yeah, it is.
But it all comes down to execution in the end.
Yeah,
Can they take all this amazing potential and actually make it into a reality?
totally. That's the thing. It's not just about the potential anymore. It's about whether or not they can capitalize on it.
Right. It's a story that's still being written
Yeah.
as we go into this next week,
Hmm.
the week of
Okay.
December 30th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everyone's going to be watching to see what happens.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to dive into some of the things that might affect how Rigetti performs going forward. All right, so we're back, and we're going to wrap up our deep dive into Rigetti Computing. We've been talking about their incredible stock performance and kind of the volatility in the quantum computing sector.
Yeah, and the big question is, can they turn all this technology into an actual business?
Right, because you could have the most amazing quantum computer in the world, but if nobody wants to use it or pay for it,
doesn't matter.
it
Right.
doesn't matter. So I guess this is where things get really interesting. We have to kind of look beyond all the hype and figure out, what are the real-world uses for this technology?
Exactly. Like, what can a quantum computer do that a regular computer can't? And are those solutions valuable enough to justify the cost?
So is it about finding that one killer app?
I mean, maybe, but
Yeah.
it's probably more like a bunch of killer apps.
Go.
Because quantum computing has the potential to change so many different industries. Healthcare, finance, materials science, artificial intelligence.
Wow, that's a pretty big range.
Yeah.
Can you give us some specific examples?
Sure. So in healthcare, imagine using quantum computers to design new drugs and therapies, to simulate complex biological processes, to personalize treatment plans. In finance, they can be used to optimize portfolios, manage risk, even create new financial instruments. Materials science, you could use them to discover new materials, maybe even create superconductors that work at room temperature.
Okay.
And in AI, they could help develop much more powerful machine learning algorithms, maybe even truly intelligent systems.
That sounds kind of like science fiction. How realistic is all of this?
Well, it's a little bit of both, to be honest.
Okay.
Some of this stuff is still theoretical. It needs more development in the technology itself. But some of it's closer than you think. We're already seeing quantum computers being used to solve real problems.
So it's a field that's moving really fast.
Mhm.
What should investors be looking out for in the next few years?
One thing that's going to be really important is fault-tolerant quantum computers. Right now, quantum computers are prone to errors, which limits what they can do. But scientists are working on ways to correct those errors so we can have more reliable quantum computers.
So it's about making the technology more stable. What else is there?
Another thing to watch is the development of quantum software and algorithms. As the hardware gets better, we're going to need the tools to take advantage of it.
It's kind of like you build a powerful engine, you need a good driver to get the most out of it.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of the real innovation is going to happen, finding new ways to use these computers to solve problems.
So for our listeners who've been with us on this deep dive, what's the main takeaway?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that Rigetti is at the forefront of something truly revolutionary. They're building technology that could change the world. But investing in a company like this is risky. You need to really understand the technology, the market, the competition.
Right.
And you have to be comfortable with risk and volatility.
So it's high risk, high reward.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
But for people who believe in the future of quantum computing and who are willing to go on the ride, Rigetti could be a huge opportunity, a chance to be a part of something truly special.
Well said. That's all the time we have for our deep dive into Rigetti Computing. We hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, keep exploring and keep diving deep.